Hi there, everybody. In this mini lecture video, we are going to be talking about the function of literature as a mirror for society. In other words, we are what we read. So let's get started, shall we? The Russian poet Boris Pasternak once said that literature is the art of discovering something extraordinary about ordinary people and saying with ordinary words something extraordinary. Now, literature and its connection with society. Literature is not produced in a vacuum. It reflects the spirits and anxieties and hopes of a society. So it's not just something that's produced sectioned off, vacuumed off, siloed off from the world. It is very much produced by a society, and it influences the society that produces it. Literature forms and expresses values and beliefs, and we're going to talk a little bit later on in this video about how that kind of happens. And literature also articulates what we think and feel. Again, literature is produced, it's a product of the society. It's a reflection of the society that produces it. So what does this mean? Well, there's this idea called the corrective function of literature. And it tells us that literature, it mirrors the ills of a society with a view towards making us realize our mistakes and giving us the opportunity to make amends and to do things better. So in other words, it shows us what we are doing wrong. It shows a society what's not working, and it gives us the opportunity to recognize how to fix that. It projects the virtues of good values of a society for people to emulate. So just like it can show us what we're doing wrong and give us the chance to correct that, it can show us what we're doing right and give us a model, something to aim for, something to emulate. As I've said a few times so far, it is impossible to find a work of literature which excludes the attitudes, the morals, the values of the society that produced it. Again, literature is not produced in a vacuum. It is a product of a society. And finally, literature is not only a reflection of the society which produces it, but it serves as that corrective mirror, which we get to take a look at ourselves and we can see or find the need for positive change. In other words, we are our stories. And in a lot of ways, we and the way that we see the world are merely the constructs of the stories that we believe. Our political preferences, our moral compasses, these are all based on stories that we've been taught throughout our lives, either by our parents, our teachers, or the overall collective narrative of society itself. These stories are the ways that human beings make meaning. We tell stories in order to understand the world. And these stories that we tell, and particularly the stories that our parents, our authority figures, the society at large, these stories that we've been told, they shape the way that we see the world. And in turn, when we tell our stories, we are shaping the way that others are seeing the world. So most of these narratives come from literature that's passed down through generations of human existence. This idea of archetypes, of the collective unconscious of humanity. When a narrative becomes a dominant belief, society establishes norms surrounding that story, and it influences individual behavior, which then again turns around and influences the literature produced. And that literature that gets produced influences society again, and it kind of works its way around in a circle. So when we pass these stories down, and when stories get passed down, they become commonplace and we get used to them, and we construct our systems of belief around those stories. So this never-ending cycle, it continues to feed into itself. It shapes and reshapes a society based on the self-reflecting nature of literature. And in other words, society will influence the literature that we produce, which in turn ultimately changes the way a society behaves. So when you are reading a text, some questions for you to ask are, what social issues does the text engage with? And it's important to point out that these questions are applicable to fiction that we might call real world fiction, more realistic stuff, or this can also very much apply to speculative fiction, science fiction, fantasy. These texts, these speculative texts, are also produced. They are also products of a society. And because the authors are living in the world, they put, the thoughts, beliefs, morals, systems of that society into their work. So what social issues does the text engage with? What societal problems does the text highlight? So what issues, what problems with society is the text highlighting? Is it showing us? How does the text provide us with an opportunity for hope or change? And how accurately does the text portray the world that we live in? Because sometimes authors get it wrong and they portray things in a very skewed manner. We want to be critical in our reading. Ultimately, all this comes down to the fact that literature matters. The stories that we tell ourselves shape the way that we see the world. The stories that we are told influence the way that we see the world, and the stories that we tell others influence the way they see the world. Literature also gives us the opportunity to interrogate what we see and hear and read and learn about. And it gives us the opportunity to say, you know what? We can do better. It also gives us the opportunity to say, I want to be like that person. I want to be like that character. Literature matters. Thanks very much. I will see you all in the next video.